Hi, Tom.
Hey, Rick. Hey, everybody. Here with my good friend Rick Shaw, president of Campbell Shaw Incorporated, and a wonderful, strong supporter of our work with Global Training Network. Rick and I are going to spend a few minutes here answering some questions.
Tom and I have been together about 25 years. He brought me to the Lord. I've watched his ministry grow. He's definitely a fantastic musician, but he's also a really good teacher. And I think this ministry that he's in now is probably the perfect opportunity for him. So, how did you get into this?
Well, about 2 years ago, I was standing in the back room of my house and at the middle of the night, and I prayed a prayer. I said, Lord, where in the world could I be most effective given my experience, education, and giftedness? I'd been doing music ministry for 25 years. I did preaching ministry for 17 years and just felt like I'd like to be in a place where God would really use me effectively. So I talked with Dr. Linus Morris. Mary Lou recommended him and went and had lunch with him. And then he connected me with the president of Global Training Network, Dr. Paul Madsen. And we began in September 2015. And since then, I've been to Brazil 3 times, the Philippines twice, Thailand and Laos twice, Tanzania once, and my next trip is back to Tanzania, where I'll be training 100 to 200 pastors.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, what do you feel that your impact is in this work?
Well, the impact, I think, is in the training of indigenous pastors and church leaders. The idea is to move away from the model where only Westerners train, but what we're trying to do is to train indigenous people so that they can train the people in their country in their own language, understanding their own culture, their own theological understandings and background. And we feel that this is the most effective way to grow the church in these areas, and it's working.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
How would you quantify your impact?
Well, it's hard to quantify ministry, but I'll give you an example. With Timothy leadership training that we did in Laos, of the 15 pastors there, they went back to their villages, and one of them led 17 people to Christ and baptized them, and then another one like 30 or so. It's just unbelievable. So they did course 1 on pastoral care, and then last fall they completed course 2 on stewardship, and in fact they're going to do course 3, I think, next month actually. So that's one way. And then with music ministry training, my hope is to develop a vision for a large picture of worship and music arts, much more than just the worship team idea that is so popular now around the world. There's nothing wrong with that model, but I think there are things that we have gained and maybe some things that we have lost. I think there's an opportunity for training to give people a bigger vision for what that might look like in the future.
Well, where do you want to see this go? I mean, what direction do you want it to take?
Well, I think that one of the keys is the development of action plans, where those who come to the training are required to write out what they feel God is leading them to do in their ministry, and then to formulate specific goals and activities that will accomplish those things. And then they've got to report on that plan the next time that we meet, like 4 to 6 months later, so that there is an accountability. The idea is it's not just about the head knowledge, but it's much more about making things happen and turning it into real ministry that affects real people in real situations.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
If you could improve one aspect of your endeavor, what would that be?
Well, I think developing teams is probably the most important thing. I'd like to develop a team of people from the United States to go with me who have expertise in the various areas of ministry. For instance, if we determine that in an area they need to develop the equipment that they have, you'd be a great person to come with me to give them counsel as to what their options are, what's the smart thing to do, what can they afford, what kind of design should they do. And then that would be true with other areas of ministry, those who have musical expertise, those who have pastoral expertise. But then not only having people from here, but perhaps more important is forming teams in each country so that there are pastors and leaders who then take the whole thing and run with it. They're being trained in order to train others.
Perfectly. That makes perfect sense. But what limits your ability to achieve this?
Well, the biggest limitation is financial. I mean, it costs
That
a lot
makes
of money to travel around the world like this. The costs of travel are actually higher than I had thought that they would be. And then there are also expenses in country, not only hotels and food and that sort of stuff, but there's also the underwriting of training, which again is greater than I thought it would be. But in so many of these countries, the reason they need training is they can't afford to get it on their own, and they don't have access to it even if they could afford
Right.
it. So the whole idea is bring the training to them and then let them train others the way that they have been trained. So that's the mission of Global Training Network. There are about 100 full-time staff on global training doing this in all parts of the world, and I have the opportunity now to be on 4 different continents doing this training. So it's expensive. We need people who will invest with us because it is completely funded by people's giving. I used to get my salary from the church. People give to the church writes me a paycheck. Now, the same principle is there, but I have to ask people to give into my account so that we can take care of all of the expenses of the ministry. And the Lord has blessed us in great ways so far, but like I said, the expenses this year are greater than I had anticipated. We could use some people giving $100 a month, $200 a month to help us with the financial aspects of
Well,
it.
this is kingdom work. I mean, when you support your church, you're supporting a local group of people.
Right.
And you have an actual international impact.
Yeah.
So I think that would be really worth supporting. And I do support you.
Well, and we appreciate that. And I would appreciate anybody else who, if the Lord sort of touches your heart and mind and says, you know what, this would be a really good thing to be involved with, because you would own a part of this ministry. And then we will send newsletters and updates, all the time to...
Yeah, Tom's great about sending out pictures of where he's been and stories, and I think that's what makes it so easy to stay close to you,
Yeah.
is that you really chronicle.
Well, I'm
everything
trying.
you
I mean,
do.
it's a lot of work, but we're trying to make that happen because I want the people who are investing in the ministry to get a real sense of what it's like being there, who the people are, and what the influence of all of this is. I cannot believe that I get to do this, Rick. I mean, this is... If you had told me 2 years ago that I would be doing this around the world, I would have told you you're absolutely out of your mind. But the Lord has answered my prayer. Where in the world? And look what has happened. It's just incredible. So we are thoroughly blessed to be doing this and to feel like what we're doing is effective for the kingdom of God.
Well, God bless you. Really thank you for the time. See you folks later.